All right, guys, we are getting down and dirty today. We have come up with a list of your most common excuses, and we know them really well because they used to be our excuses, maybe not Mike's, but definitely mine.
Speak for yourself.
And we're going to give you the real reason why you have this excuse. And now you may not even know that these are excuses. I think oftentimes when we get on the phone with people, we're like, you got more excuses, and they're like, that's not an excuse. Like, that's my life, or that's my schedule, or that's my whatever. So, want to dive on in?
Sure.
The number one excuse
is no time. I do not have enough time. And I think that we know, and I think you do too by now, that is an excuse. The problem is not time. It's our perception of how much time we think we actually need. And the number one thing that I see from people is that they overwhelm themselves. Right? When people want to even consider beginning this process of making a change, what they automatically put in their brain is that it's going to take this much work. It's going to take this much time. When in reality, done properly, it's like anything. The more precise you can be, the less time you need to put into it. So it's always quality over quantity.
That is so good. And just a quick little aside on that. You guys have a messy sock drawer? Your sock drawer messy? Anybody? Definitely not his. You should see his. It's amazing.
Military style.
You would be envious of his sock drawer. I have sock drawer envy. But most people, life coach fact, most people never clean out their sock drawer. 10, 20 years, right? They don't clean out their sock drawer. Do you want to know the average amount of time it would actually take for you to clean it out and put it back right? 8 minutes. But people will put it off for decades. And the same are true with our health and fitness goals, right? Like, I don't have time. You're just not prepared. You're not making a priority. So that leads us to number 2, which is, I don't know what to eat. This is probably one of the most frustrating ones, especially if you're in one of our programs, because we actually provide you with an exact list of what to eat. And he gets on the phone with you to do an exact conference on exactly what you should be eating when, from the moment you wake up until the moment you go to bed. That's literally what we help design for each individual person. And so really, it's not a matter of like not knowing what to eat. It's just that you haven't dove enough into the resources to actually figure out the answers to that question. One of the traits that we admire very much is resourcefulness, right? And so there's no shortage of resources when it comes to working with us in our programs, which is why when people say things like, well, I don't know what to eat, that is one of my least favorite excuses.
Well, and I'm just going to put it out there. I think that's one of the biggest BS excuses because, to be honest, it's like, maybe you don't always know what to eat, but you definitely know what not to eat. And if you actually approached it that way, which I know people don't like to approach it that way because in their minds that automatically means restriction, deprivation. We teach everybody that it's not about that at all. And as we talked about yesterday, or I spoke about yesterday in our VIP group, was categories. Like when you understand the categories of food and how it all pieces together, you don't have to understand specific foods. You just have to know what category it fits and where it fits in your plan.
That is so good. Well, I think the best is when somebody comes and they're like, there was nothing else to eat, so I had to have the double fudge chocolate lava cake. And I'm like, but did you? But did you really have to have that? So good. All right. Next is, I'll do this one. I can't stay on track. Okay. Now, the very first thing I'm going to say on this, we don't expect anybody to be perfect because I sure as heck, and again, I'm not going to speak for him. I'm going to speak for myself again. I am not perfect. He's pretty disciplined. I will give him that. You're definitely not perfect. I've been married to you long enough to know that. But, when people are like, well, I can't stay on track, I think, first of all, we have this image of like, it's got to be perfect. It's not going to be perfect. Get over the perfection. It is never going to be perfect. So once we can move past that, the way that we stay on track more often than not is having a strong why. So if I were just to say, like, I'd like to lose some weight, cool. My why was I needed to overcome irritable bowel syndrome, IBS, narcolepsy, cystic hormonal acne, and chronic fatigue. I was falling asleep driving, guys. I was falling asleep at tutoring sessions. I could barely make it through my teaching day. Like, I was in pain, but most of us, we normalize our pain, so it's not bad enough. But until we point that out and we actually have the strong reason why we're doing it, it makes it easier for us to stay on track most of the time. Not being perfect, but staying on track.
You know what? Let's add one more to that because those are things that people, you mentioned a few items there that you wanted to get away from them, right? So your reason why was to get away.
Pain.
And not everybody always has that pain. But remember this one we heard yesterday. We were with our chiropractor and we were talking about ice cream. And he was making mention of the fact that, yeah, you know what? I haven't had any ice cream since January. Like, wow, that's impressive, because you were on a great streak also, right?
Yeah.
You went several months.
Still pretty good.
Yeah,
Yeah. Once in a while.
Yeah, but
Not
the
perfect.
point is that he hasn't had any.
Yeah.
And we were like, what happened? And we know what his discipline can be like from time to time. It can be questionable. But he said, I promised my kid.
Yeah.
Promised my kid. Whew, that was a big one right there, because that's what you need to find is what is the thing, or who is the person that you can't let down.
Yeah.
And if you tell that person, you make that commitment and you make that promise to that person that you will not do it, then chances are you'll find every way imaginable to stay on track.
That's what Living with Mike does for me. Next one. Oh, that was it. That was it. Other people say things like, oh, I just can't find the time to work out. And that'll bring us back to the first one, right? Which is no time, which is just a lack of preparations, a lack of schedule and discipline. And really, if we look at all these things, it really does come back to pretty much the same core things. You know, we always say that you really want to have a why that makes you cry. Mine definitely was an escape from pain. Others is a move towards pleasure, but I think that escape from pain is a little bit stronger, you know, for most people. So that being said, why are you here? And then why that? And then why that? And then why that? We typically like you to go 7 layers deep. And when you can get a hold of that why that actually like gives you chills or goosebumps or tingles, or maybe even makes you water up. I couldn't go to my teaching job anymore and not be able to rebutton my pants and look at my students who would make fun of the pimples on my face, or be in the car and think, oh my gosh, I'm going to hurt myself or somebody else falling asleep behind the wheel. Can you imagine me with that little energy? I mean, that would be insane. This is just natural now. But that being said, you know, it is important for us to recognize what our excuses are, because at the end of the day, excuses, you know, there's a lot of analogies for them, but we can choose. It's a choice to overcome it, right? We have to recognize it first, and then we have to make that choice to overcome it. And you got 2 of the best people here. I mean, I had all the excuses in the book as to why I couldn't do whatever it was. So I understand it. And he's heard them all over 25 years of working with everybody. So that being said, any closing thoughts, Mike?
I personally have never had a why that made me cry. So don't think,
Really?
yeah.
You wanted to like first. You wanted to be first in bodybuilding. You want to get your pro
Yeah,
card.
but what I'm saying is that see, now that is leverage.
Okay.
That's
but you're moving towards pleasure. Like that was your goal, right?
Yeah.
I was moving away from pain.
But
so
you know, I wasn't going to cry about it.
I don't
That's
know.
all I'm saying.
You got your pro card and you were like, maybe not.
No, the point is, guys, I can't like reinforce what Corey Beth said enough. It's that you need to have that leverage. That source of leverage
What was yours?
is the key. My leverage was I was not going to stand up there wearing next to nothing and embarrass myself.
Okay. So it was the pain of embarrassment.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
Would you have cried if you got up there and
No,
people were
no.
like, he's flabby?
No, I don't cry. I'm not going to cry.
Mike cried once. It's when our first child was born.
Yeah.
Didn't even cry for the second. Did you?
I was used to it, but
Once. I got one out of him. All right, you guys.
all right, guys.
Stop making excuses. You are the only one that suffers from them. I was the queen of excuse making. So if you have an excuse we didn't cover, let us know in the comments. Drop it for us. We'd be more than happy to cover it or walk through it individually with you. And we look forward to seeing you back here tomorrow at 1:30 Eastern.
Later, guys.
Bye.